once again for coming here. I know this time of the term is really busy, so we really appreciate this, time that you set aside to meet your fellow TAs and to also get this orientation into the program. So first of all, acknowledge that UC Vancouver is located on the traditional territory of Musqueam people, and as people on this land that aren't traditionally from here, it's our responsibility to be aware of this and to also recognize our position in the school system. And it's also our responsibility to do what we can to make sure that we colonialize the system and making sure that we incorporate Muslim values in our teaching. And as TA coordinators, or as TAs rather, we have the responsibility in our classroom to make sure that the climate reflects this responsibility and to make sure that the other students also respect this. So there are different ways you can get involved. On campus, you can attend events at the First Nations House of Learning, which is just at the law house. They're very friendly over there. You can visit the Indian Residential School History and Dialogue Center. It's close to IKE. And in Vancouver, that's the greater Vancouver area. You can explore the Musqueam Cultural Center. You can connect with groups like the Vancouver Aboriginal Friendship Center. You can attend festivals. And in all this, in case you have notes, some tips are approach as a learner and as representative, recognize your position in this whole bigger system that we're in, and also support indigenous-led initiatives and businesses, and reflect on your own relationships with them. Also, there's the UBC farm. There's so many opportunities to get involved, so I encourage you to do that as part of your own personal practice. So, my name is Ikome. How to pronounce my name? Thank you so much. So I'm the TA coordinator for the department, and I'm really happy to be here and to support you all. Please feel free to always email me if you have any issues, whether it's beyond TA or if you just need some support, or I can also direct you to some more resources on campus, within the department and within the greater campus. So this is how the flow of the session is going to be. Sort of some introductions. We have some of our faculty here, we have our TA mentors here, and we are all here to provide more support and to help you understand the role better and to show you, to answer any questions that you might have. We'll also be talking about understanding the role of a TA, navigating assignments, rubrics, and marking, and managing AI in coursework, also balancing TA responsibility and well-being, and then we'll have some interactive questions at the end. So, but first, I would like everyone to scan this QR code. Just tell us, how you feel in one word. The session is, the beginning of the session is the hardest time, I think, because that's when you're trying to find the flow. So we'll go here. Okay, I'm back. Okay, it looks like the biggest one is tired. Some people are excited. I'm glad. If you're feeling peckish, please help yourself to something. But yeah, I can guarantee that it's the most stressful time at the beginning of the term. So it will get easier as you learn to manage your responsibilities. Well, the second most stressful time is the marking period. So that's also quite stressful. But by then, you have more resources available to help. Okay. So this is an icebreaker. So I would love for us to go maybe from here, if you're okay with that. So I'd love for you to share 2 truths about yourself and 1 wish for the upcoming year. Your name first.
Okay. Hi, I'm Sophie, she, her. 2 truths about myself. My favorite color is gray, and I'm allergic to eggs. And a wish for the upcoming year is to finish my thesis.
Also, please share the class you're TAing.
And I'm TAing for John's 209.
I'm Larissa. I don't know. I'm from Brazil, and that's a truth. And I got married 2 months ago. That's another truth. Thank you. And a wish for my upcoming year is to not get depressed when there's no sunlight out anymore. again. And yeah, that's it. I'm TAing 201 with Sharita Poetry.
Hi, I'm Zara. Two truths are I learned how to bike 2 months ago for the first time. It was amazing, my god. And I'm a cat person who is not beloved by cats. It's the worst thing that God has done to me. And one wish for the upcoming year, I also hope I finish my thesis on time. And I'm doing Ray Clark's Intro to New Media.
Hi everyone, I'm Nina, pronouns she, her. One truth is I can't swim, and the other one, so please don't make me swim.
I thought it would come with it.
And the other is I'm a Gemini, yeah. Yeah, and then my one wish for this year is just to meet my deadlines, like all of them. Or any of them. All of them. All of them. Shoot for the
As many
stars.
as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I'm Grania, she, her. I love swimming. I love water.
Don't rub it.
I can swim. I don't know.
I can do it.
Another truth about me, I love dogs. And my one wish is to finish my thesis, hopefully. And I'm
You just ripped off of all of us.
Great. No, and I'm TAing with Sophie and John, CO2
Hi everyone, I'm Ash. I use whatever respectful pronouns you throw at me. I'm TAing 200 with Taylor. Yes. Two truths. Last TV show I watched was Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and I have 2 cats named Mochi and Sesame.
We're gonna hate
Amazing.
And my one wish
Amazing.
has nothing to do with with academics. I want to learn the guitar this year.
Hi everyone, I'm Shana. Two truths. I have a dog named Bean, and I'm very much a perfectionist. So my one wish is to maybe not be such a perfectionist. And I'm TAing intro to creative writing. Hi, I'm Mary, she, her. Two truths. I have 2 cats, and then my other truth is that I like reading poetry to them. The one wish is I would like to figure out what the hell I'm doing by the end of this year, next year, forever. Just get my shit together, and then and then Shrita's show on poetry class. Hi.
Hi, I'm Meg. I use she, they pronouns, and I'm TAing 203 New Media with Ray Clark as well. 2 truths. My favorite animal is a jellyfish. And also, I'm getting really into learning about dog sledding races right now, which is fun. And one wish for the upcoming year, I would love to meet new people in Vancouver. I'm new. So, yeah.
Hi, I'm Marina. First truth about me, it's not my natural hair color. And second, I'm actually allergic on wheat, so I'm jealous that you can eat pizza. I'm not. I'm not. And my wish for next year, I want to have fun, not be too stressed and overwhelmed. And I'm TA for intro in creative writing.
I'm Esther. I'm TAing for Anosh's Intro to Creative Writing. Things about me, I love desserts, all cakes, I don't discriminate, all fruit. And I'm pretty good at making pickles. I wish to be able to get some good camping in the season for the festival.
Hi, I'm John, he, him. 2 truths. I really like playing basketball. And I'm a tree planter in the off season or at summer home. And one wish, I hope to create a food blog with my partner
TA for 308 Taylor, Graphic Forms. I am a part of the MACL program. I'm not an MFA student like all of you lovely folk in here. And another truth about myself, gotta pick something interesting. I'm allergic to heroin. Actually, it's morphine, but morphine's that's no drugs for me. And my wish for the year, honestly, just to meet some cool people and some friends, hopefully, in either TAing or my classes.
Hi everyone, I'm Eric. He, him pronouns are fine. I'm TAing Intro to Creative Writing this term and Intro to Fiction next term. Two truths, I love to cook and I love to go camping and hiking. And then a wish for the upcoming year. I'm new to Vancouver, so I'd like to make friends, and specifically I'd like to make friends with other writers. That's me.
I'm Matt, he, him pronouns, and I'm also in the MACL program, Master of Arts in Children's Literature. So one truth for me is that I work with kids a lot. And another truth is also I have kids, so lots of children in my life. And a wish that I have is to, amidst all the scheduling and deadlines, to find space for fun and discovery and play. So.
I'm Bree, pronoun she, her. Interestingly, I had moved 18 times by the time I was 18. Yeah. And in keeping with the animal theme, okay, at our peak we had 1 dog, 5 cats, 2 ferrets, a snake, which got out, it was bad for the next people who lived in that house, and 2 hermit crabs. But I think that they were dead. And how can you tell with hermit crabs if they're dead or not? I am TAing next term, or the spring term, Dina Del Duquia's Intro to Comedy Writing class. And what was the last thing? Oh, wish. Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I used to teach, I created a dance and writing hybrid class in LA for young folks to kind of merge two of my loves and passions in the ways that I deal with my mental health and self-care. So I'd like to get that going again. Rock and write.
Hi, I'm Laura, she, her pronouns. I can't sing at all, can't sing anything in tune, and I love to hike and walk and just kind of generally be in motion. One wish for the upcoming years is to get to know Vancouver more, since I'm new to Vancouver, hopefully explore a bit. And I'm TAing 205, creative nonfiction.
I'm Bronwyn Tate. I'm the undergraduate chair. Pronouns are she, her. 2 truths about me are I was in a Fleetwood Mac choir over the summer. So we sang Fleetwood Mac in parks. It was great.
It's not a rumor.
No. Another one, I made pear jam last night. Ask me about my jam. Let's see. One wish for this year. I think often when things get busy, it's easy to be at my computer all the time. And so my wish is to find ways to continue to be embodied and to do things that are not only at my computer, even when things get busy.
Yes. Oh, I'm Tarek. Hello, everybody. I'm faculty TA coordinator. That's one truth. I can't have gluten. That's my other truth. And what am I looking forward to? Well, a couple things I'm looking forward to. One is I am working on a book, so I'm trying to get a draft of a memoir done. The other one is, I'm TA coordinator for the first time, taking over from Taylor, so who's done it for the last few years. So I'm hoping for, that it goes nice and smooth. I guess that's chill TA. So hoping for a good term and looking forward to working with all of you guys.
Thanks, Tarek. I'm Linda Svensson. I teach TV, although I find myself thinking a lot about pickleball. That's truth. And I guess another truth would be, I'm gonna lie. I'm Leo, And then my wish is that I hope I have a TA for 316. I've never had a TA before. This is all very mysterious. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm going to have pizza. And yeah, I'm just hoping I have a TA for 316. You will. Okay.
I'm Zach Hug. Oh, sorry.
Wait,
What's your wish?
A bride? No, I'm kidding.
I'm Zach Hug. I also teach television and screen, and I have also never had a TA, so I am here to learn what that is like. I have a dog named Pickles. He's old, 14, and a wish. I'm gonna go big. I'm gonna wish that the world was like 200% kinder. So that's it.
Hey, I'm Bora, he, him. I guess one truth is I'm a Leo, it's a simple one. Second one is I suck at writing third-person bios, I realized. Last week while I was doing the TA bio thing, can't come up with something that's just good. And wishes maybe I get better at that. And I'm TAing Intro to Fiction with John.
Hi, I'm Tristan, she, her. I'm TAing for John's 309 class, Danny and Sohana. One truth about me, I have a really good sense of smell, which I think is a blessing and a curse. And then, I'm terrible with directions. Like, any city I'm in, anywhere, anytime, I have no idea where like northeast, southwest is, and like I kind of probably never will.
What does it smell like right now in this room?
I don't want to get into it. And then one wish for me is just that I return all my library books before they're overdue.
There's no like.
Yeah, I know, but I somehow have.
It's so embarrassing.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Danny, pronoun she, her. I'm TAing for John's 209 fiction class along with some others. 2 truths about me. My favorite scent is lavender. My favorite card game is Hearts. One wish I have for the upcoming year is to figure out what my thesis is going to be.
I'm Lawrence, they, them. I'm TAing for Mandy's CNF 305. And I turned in my thesis last week. And I love film festivals, so I've been enjoying going to the Latin American Film Fest and the Queer Film Fest that are coming up. Really recommend them. A wish is to not panic about 2026 and to stay in the moment, find joy.
I'm Danny, she, they. I'm TAing 309 with John this term, and my first truth is Linda, I am your TA for 360. Next year.
Wishes come true. How much is the bride?
My second truth is I grew up in Florida, and the Florida man stereotype is absolutely true. Everything you've ever heard, it happened. My wish for this year is to come up with a revision process for myself that is a little bit more of a process, methodically, and a little less of whatever my heart feels like.
Hi, my name is Rosanna, she, her. 2 truths about myself. There are so many things I've been thinking about, but I could think of I have a sweet tooth, which is almost on the verge of addiction, and it's getting bad these days. Second, I love cats, but right now I don't have any. And one wish for the upcoming year, and again there are many wishes, but I think right now I should say that I want to have a complete draft of my thesis. I hope. That's it.
Hi everybody, I'm Alicia. I am TAing for 206. Screenwriting. And one truth is that my neck is sore from turning around so much. Second truth is that I'm really tired because I did 2 drafts of my thesis over the summer and I'm exhausted. And it's the wackiest thing I've ever written in my life. So it completely wiped me out. Wish is that I to not be overwhelmed.
Clearly not. You're not.
Hi everyone, my name is Chinelo. I am Chiha pronounced, and I'm TAing for 206, Introduction to Screenwriting. Two truths about me. Yeah, I realized I love rice, so rice will just be my favorite food. And then secondly, I started hiking, like the Red Beach Stairs. So if you haven't been there, I kind of recommend it, but you're going to be sore anyway. Yeah, and my wish this year is to be more creative, do more writing and stuff.
Thank you so much, everyone. So my two truths are, one, I'm really good at badminton, so if anyone ever wants to play.
Oh yeah.
Second one is my favorite color right now is purple. Yeah. And then my wish for the year is to also finish my thesis. So we all get that. So you've already met the faculty members here. So we have Tarek, who is the faculty TA coordinator, and he teaches classes across all levels in Intro to Creative Writing and Lyric Forms. And then we have Roman Tate. She's the undergraduate chair and she teaches classes across all levels in poetry and pedagogy. So I'm taking classes with both of them, and I can definitely recommend both classes. Yeah, in case you want to do lyrics.
Also teaching translation this year.
Oh yes, also teaching translation. Yeah, if you've never written a song, you can take Lyric Forms class, because I hadn't written one, and then I came out with a couple of songs I really like. So yeah. So these are your team mentors. So first we have Sophie, Larissa, and Chinelu. So they're here to support you throughout the term. If you have any questions concerning TA or any advice, think of them as like friends that are supposed to help you and supposed to talk to you.
We're being paid to be your friends.
Exactly. So I just want to explain the difference between my role as a TA coordinator and their roles as TA mentors. So the first one is, as TA coordinator, I manage the administration of the TA program. So TA coordinator email, when you send an email, I'm the one that responds. If you have any questions about TA, I can also answer that, although they can answer that as well. But I also act as the main contact between TA and faculty. So see me as that bridge between you and the general creative writing department. General creative writing department. And then I oversee the orientation and other trainings that you have. So across the year, you have something called advanced teaching workshops. So I also oversee that. And I provide TA with necessary information. For example, if there's some information that needs to be passed out, like the instructional skills workshop, which is ISW for short, you might have heard about that, but it's an added teaching certificate that you can get, or added teaching training that you can get. So things like that. And also if you have any challenges with your classes or with your instructor or with anything concerning TA, you can reach out to me and we can figure out something together. Then TA mentors are, like Larissa said, they're like fit to be your friends. So they're here to help you with your role, like help you, give you advice on managing workload and meeting expectations. And they also help with training. They offer practical advice in teaching with TC. And they are also peer mentors in the sense that they serve as contact for discussing your challenges or anything that might be going. They might just need an extra set of ears for your classes. So Tarek is actually going to come forward and talk more about the role of a TA.
You're going to navigate my slides for me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, it's nice to see everybody. Some of you are my current students, some are my former students, some are my former TAs. So, there's good people in this room. I look forward to meeting some of you that I don't know already. Yeah, I guess we can go to the first slide. So the role of the TA, connecting students and faculty, supporting and clarifying course material. I'll just read through these and then we can talk a bit more. Also, if you have any questions as we go, I'm happy to answer them or try to answer them. Relaying student feedback to improve course delivery, supporting various needs in office hours. So, this, Ronald, when you sat down earlier, you said, oh, TAs are like very important role. You guys have an important role, and we, as faculty, really do depend on the TAs for to help us with keeping these classes afloat. I mean, it's impossible without that. I teach one class that I teach has 400 students in it, and I have a team of 8 TAs. So, really do. I know as a instructor, I know I really rely on TAs and value all the time that people put in to do all the work that's necessary. So, there are things that, concerns or whatever that go between faculty and students. You're kind of the bridge. You have office hours with students, so you get to know a lot of different things that are going on with them that we'll hear about. If you let me know, say if I'm the instructor on the course. Okay, yeah, sure. Let's get into the nitty-gritty stuff. The big part, I think, is the grading. Certainly for the classes that I've taught, like the large lecture classes, the 200 lecture classes, the grading is the big thing. I know there's different styles of TAs for different styles of classes, but grading is pretty big. So, not surprising, it's kind of the number one thing, or the first thing on this slide. So assessing student assignments according to the rubric, and providing feedback to students as well. This is kind of the delicate balance of the numerical grade, and as well the insights that students really kind of hope for. I think many of them, maybe some don't worry about the feedback, but I think a lot of them value the feedback. So trying to figure out how to nuance those comments in the proper way. I know you've probably heard about the praise sandwich, right? Or it's like called other things, but praise sandwich is a pretty good way to put it. Here's something that's really working. Here's a challenge. Here's leave on a positive note at the end. So getting that feedback and dialing that in and finding an efficient way to do it when you have 50 students is part of the challenge, I think, of this. But you get better and better at it. I think for anyone who's TA, how many people have already TA'd? Yeah, you kind of get the feel for that, and it gets easier as you go. I think most things in the TA will get easier as you go. It always, as you said, seems a little overwhelming at first, but once you get the knack for it, it gets easier. Answering questions, students. I always try and direct students to ask questions to the course email address, which is usually going to go to the TA inbox. And oftentimes those are just logistical questions or functionality questions, so you're kind of dealing with a bunch of those things. I think if you don't know the answers to that, obviously you can always ask your instructor if you're not totally sure about what's the regrade policy or something like that. And you may have specific questions about the assignments that you assess. Some students want to talk about the feedback that they got, or to get clarification on that. So sometimes you're doing some of those things. In-class support, so there might be some classroom activities that may require TAs to be there. I think that's really dependent on your instructor. For my classes, for the 200, I usually don't have TAs present in the room that much, unless they want to. I mean, if you really want to, you can, but I know that the marking is a big chunk of everyone's obligation, so I try not to tax TAs by having them hang around class listening to my lectures, unless they really want to do that. But every instructor is different, and they have some different needs and the way the class is structured. So you may have some different tasks around that. Lecturing, sometimes I find I have the TA that wants to deliver a lecture. How many people would want to deliver a lecture here? Okay, actually that's more than I thought. So there's opportunities for that if you want. Certainly just, I think, talk to your instructor about wanting to do something. And I've had TAs do what I find reasonable, like maybe a 20-minute lecture or something, not to try and cover a whole 75-minute class. I feel like that's a lot. But maybe the way I've seen it work well is if TA kind of does a short thing. So that's really a good opportunity for
getting a little bit of experience in front of the classroom and seeing what that's like if teaching is something that you might want to do down the line. I know when I was a TA, I did that a number of times actually, and it definitely helped me by the time I was actually teaching classes to get the experience doing that. And it can be kind of nerve-wracking in those larger lecture room classes, I know, but it's first-hand experience, so there's really kind of nothing like it to kind of stare out into a room. And if I was your instructor and you were doing that, I would, get the students to be supportive and remind them to be supportive of you, and not to be like Googling on your phone while you're doing lecture. So you may or may not do that, but I don't think most instructors require it. And any additional help where needed, there's little things that come up. So, and again, if you're ever uncertain about stuff, just ask the instructors. Things that you don't really have to deal with. Students' personal issues that may come up or really challenging situations. I always say, if there's some kind of contentious or troubling situation that you're dealing with, just get in touch with me. Communication's really the big thing. I think with TAs and instructors, that's the huge thing. So as a little note, I will say that the better you can be at communicating, I know for me that really helps. Sometimes if I, send out group emails to TAs and I don't hear from anybody or don't hear from one person, it can be a little bit worrisome. And then I gotta email everybody to try to figure out did everyone get the message, this kind of thing. So really keeping the communication flow, smooth and constant and consistent can really help. But then, when you come into situations like this, if there are student problems, you don't have to be dealing with that. You just get in touch with me and say, can you talk to the student? I think they're in distress or whatever, and I can always take over from there and get in touch with the student or meet with them or whatever is needed. Addressing excused absences. In the big lecture classes, I'm not taking attendance, say from my personal experience, so I don't really deal with attendance too much in TAs, but maybe with late assignments, or I didn't get this assignment submitted because of X, Y, and Z reason, and then I find that TAs sometimes don't know, are they allowed to give this person, an extra day or whatever. So again, it's always very dependent on your instructor, how they want to deal with it. I will often just email the student directly or figure it out. But I know I tend to be a little bit more lenient, so just let them submit it tomorrow, it should be fine or whatever. But communication, right? Yeah.
I just say that it's the instructor's responsibility to liaise with accessibility and advising offices. So sometimes students get an academic concession and then an email gets sent to the instructor. So that is communication that goes between the instructor and those offices, not with the TAs. The TAs aren't involved.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about that stuff. Yeah.
So the instructor might just say, hey, this person has an extra week. Do you have capacity to mark the assignment, or do you want me to handle it? But the arranging, the extension, or anything like that won't go through you.
A lot of students have accessibility stuff that they arrange at the beginning of term, and they send out letters. And most of the time, they usually just send it to the instructor, which is probably the right way. But I know a TA last week said to me that they had gotten a few of these, and what do they do with them? So you're often not aware of they get these extra leniencies on their quizzes or things like that, whereas I would know because I keep the letters on file. So again, you may not have that intel, but I would have that intel. So you just send it over to me or whatever. That's fine. Academic misconduct. Yeah, this is always an interesting one. Thankfully, I always, when I said earlier what was my wish for a smooth term, that's probably incorporated in there, is that I hope that there aren't those kinds of situations happening, and it's best when you feel like students aren't doing things that are defeating their chance at writing and expressing themselves and all that. I know that's complex now with AI and all of those other possibilities. I think overall, my kind of way of approaching it is that I don't like to have this paranoia about, oh, everyone's using AI, everyone's, handing in fake assignments, things like that. If I start thinking that way, it makes me kind of like suspicious or, negative. I actually don't really believe that. Maybe it's naive. I tend to think even in a big 400-person class that people are actually there because they want to write stuff. And I still do think the majority is really that. So, I think going in with that kind of mindset helps. Certainly for you as well, because you're going to be looking at assignments, and I don't want my TAs going in with a policing kind of mentality necessarily. I wouldn't put that on anybody, like, look for the AI and then get in touch with me so we can, I don't want to play that game, really. There probably are some people that are maybe doing some things and it slips by. I mean, I also think it's students, it's your education, so it's in your hands a little bit. So if they want to try and do some things like that, and we can see it, but otherwise we're not going to start playing, sneaky detective to try and find all the things that are happening. And again, I don't really think that a lot. I like to think that there are not a lot of those things happening. Now, let's say something does come up where you do feel maybe this is not a, where I know this is a copying of a Margaret Atwood short story or something like that. You don't have to talk to the student about it. You can give that to me and I can talk to them. And again, if you want to know how I approach it, I don't go in with those situations like, okay, I'm throwing the book at you. Why did you do that? I give the student a chance to talk about what they're doing. Who knows why sometimes those things happen. Sometimes students are really stressed, and you know it, you're students. You get stressed and you make a bad choice or you make an awkward choice at the last minute. I don't want to be super punitive, and I think that we've had opportunities where we say, okay, well, you got to resubmit something. And I think it's a learning moment for that student. But anyway, I think it's good for you to kind of know that might be how I would approach it in a gentler kind of a way. But you don't have to get involved in those situations or feel like you need to mediate those conversations because they get dealt with through me, or if it does escalate to another level, then it'll go there and you don't need to worry about it. So what I do as an instructor, yes, I design the course, the lectures, the assignments, handle this complication and grading stuff. Hopefully give everyone a clear list of tasks. I have a little TA handbook that I have kind of every new group of TAs that I have. It's just a Google document that everyone can kind of see, so I don't have to say the same things all the time. But I try and meet with the TAs at the beginning of the term to communicate some important stuff. And so I think between instructor and TA, you really just navigate a nice kind of dance and flow as the term starts to go. And I think once you get through that first assignment, it'll start to feel a little bit like, okay, I kind of know what I'm doing. Things just naturally are starting to work better. But communication, stay in contact with everybody, don't disappear, and I think it'll be in good shape. Final thoughts. Let's look together and see if there's anything I haven't already said. But I'll let you read and I'll read at the same time, try to remember what it's about. Yes, we do deeply appreciate your energy and work. Does not go unnoticed. Yes, I mean, as far as this, the stressful part, one thing that I often tell my TAs, I don't know if it ever completely works, is like, don't leave all your grading to the last minute. I try and send some emails over the course of the 10-day or whatever 11-day period I give students or TAs to mark. I still think people do it because that's just how we're built. But try not to do that. If you start doing your marking earlier, do a 10 a day or something like that, and you don't get to the Sunday night before the Monday deadline and like, oh my God, I got to get through 30 of these student assignments, and then your feedback's all kind of like bitter. You don't want that, right? So try and pace yourself out with that stuff, and yeah, I think you'll just find a nice, good balance between keeping your sanity, and I think you will enjoy. I think you'll enjoy the interaction that you do have with the students, because ultimately, I think many of them are, when you see them doing good work and you have them come and talk to you, and they got cool ideas, and they're really stoked that you spent 10 minutes with them to talk about something. I think you'll feel that's like a pretty awesome thing. You're helping a student out. It's awesome. I guess that's it for me. Right? Yeah.
Okay, next we have we're going to talk about assignments.
Hey, so may everybody talk about assignments a little bit and about grading and rubrics, all these lovely things that we enjoy so much. First off, just a reminder that assignments are where students not only are demonstrating their learning, but are actively learning things. And we are intentionally trying to kind of challenge our students through the assignments, give them a chance to build capacity, give them a chance to try new things. So that's what we're doing in our assignments. And then students turn in the work, and it's up to us as instructors, as TAs, to respond to that work. And I'd say we have kind of two responsibilities. One is to be fair, give clear feedback that points to strengths in the work and areas for growth. And the other is to remember that we're responding to humans and to try to connect with our students in an individual and a human way. And the best way to do that, I'd say, would be able to point to something specific in the work. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to do that when you're on a very tight time management to get through your quota of students. So next slide. Just to say a little overview of our undergraduate program. Some of you might already know this, but just in case you don't. So we offer Creative Writing 200. It's Introduction to Creative Writing. It's a multi-genre course. Tarek, Taylor, Mallory, Anoj are folks who teach this. We offer multiple sections of it and multiple modalities. We've got maybe over 1,000 students. Any given term might be taking that course. Then we have creative writing, the 2.0 various classes. So 2.01 is poetry, 2.03, 2.05, whatever the various genres. And the numbers do tend to track across the graduate program as well. So 2.01 would be, big lecture undergrad poetry. 5.01 would be grad poetry. Top both of those. Some of our courses ladder in genre into these flipped courses. So especially the core genres that we have a lot of strong TA support in. So currently poetry, writing for children, creative nonfiction, writing for screen and fiction. We also offer 3.0 classes that are run as flipped classes. So in those courses, so in the large courses, the TA's responsibility is primarily marking, and we have about 1 TA per 50 students, with about 96 hours, and most of that really does go to responding to student work. In those 300 classes for those genres that we have the flipped option, the ratio is more like 1 TA per 20 to 30 students. And in that case, the instructor provides online kind of lecture content, but then the TA is the person who's actually in the room with the students for 2 hours once a week. So I think sometimes our TAs aren't aware that some of the genres we have this, some of them we don't. So we also have some 300 level classes that are run as lectures. So 311 that Tarek teaches is 300 but is run as a lecture. 308 is currently a lecture, although I think maybe we should look into the possibility, if we have enough people doing graphics, that we'd be ready to do a flip class there. TV is a lecture even though it's 300 level. But especially if you as a TA are really keen for the possibility of being in the classroom, then requesting to work at some point in a genre that is laddered toward the flipped classes would be in your interests. So just something to be aware of. Other things to know about these courses, at the 200 level and at the 300 level, we are under a fair amount of pressure from the program of arts to give marks that are within a certain target average. And there's a lot of reasons for this, and I mean, I often wish that our classes could all be pass-fail and we could just focus on giving comments for students, but we're in this larger ecosystem where maybe student scholarship funding depends on getting their marks. There are programs like psychology that use students' overall average to decide whether they can do that major or not. There's funding, there are all these reasons that make it somewhat complicated. But this is partly why your instructors may be kind of intense about how you use the rubric, because we need to keep these averages, and anyone who's from the US, the Canadian averages are lower. So an 80 for me when I taught in the US was like a B minus, here it's an A minus. So for 200 level classes, the average should be under 80. So it means like a B plus average, essentially. And that needs to happen through a collaboration of instructors designing rubrics that will align with that work, and TAs paying attention to where the rubric is supposed to set the grades. So that's just something I think it's useful for you to be aware of. You know, we might want to encourage the students and give a really high mark, but when we're doing that, we can sort of throw everything out of whack with the program. And so there are reasons and there's structures that we kind of need to work within, and they can be constraining at times, but we can sort of find our spaces for action within them. So across that, you can think of most feedback can kind of fall into two possible things. Formative feedback would be feedback you're giving when you're considering the work as really in progress, so it's focused on how the work might be developing further. And in your graduate courses, you're probably mostly getting formative feedback, right? Because that's what is most useful to us, is to like be able to work on something, hear about it, still be able to change it. And in the upper level undergraduate classes, that is happening a good bit as well. But the summative feedback is the feedback that is kind of evaluating something for where it's at relative to certain goals or certain outcomes for the course. And in especially the 200 level classes, that's a lot of what we're doing, is this kind of summative feedback, but we can maybe find ways to think about how we can give students formative suggestions even while giving summative feedback. Some classes have some kind of short writing exercises, and there might be opportunities for pass-fail assignments, that kind of thing. But often what you're giving is this kind of summative assessment using a rubric. So if you go on to rubrics. Yeah. Rubrics are tricky. I think personally that they're kind of inherently alienating because it's this grid and you're like ranking and grading people, but it's kind of like they're, you know, bad, but they're like better than other options, which would be us just kind of going on our gut or something, and then that opens up all kinds of unfairness or bias or inconsistency across TAs. So essentially, the rubrics are there for several reasons. One is to just give students a clear sense of what to expect. So instructors will be posting the rubric with the assignment sheet, and then the student could look at it and say, okay, you know, in this short story, I'm going to be assessed on my use of dialogue, my use of character, my incorporation of setting, my attention to structure. And then they can say, okay, these are the things that I need to be paying attention to. There's a transparency there, you know, and I think sometimes people can say, like, just write a story, do your best. But while in some ways that might encourage creativity, it also can lead to a lot of anxiety. And I think if we're going to be assessing someone, especially in this way, we owe it to them to be transparent and to be clear with them about what we're assessing. So partly rubrics are there to give clarity to the student, but they're also there to give clarity to the TA. What are you looking for in an assignment? How are you assessing it? What are these sort of criteria that the student, I remember in the TA training last year, someone was like, well, what if I'm grading for comedy and the thing's just not funny? And it's like, well, is that in the rubric or not? You know, and sometimes, you know, I teach poetry, and man, poetry rubrics are hard. I like weasel my way around them in all kinds of ways. I can show you later if you want. But often it's like, how well did a student do on engaging with a revision or something like that? And I might think that their poem is terrible, but that's kind of beside the point. We're not always looking only at the quality of the work. We might be looking at how rigorously is a student thinking through course questions or concepts. So that's also, you know, maybe that sometimes how high of an achievement the actual poem is might be, well, we'll talk about that later when they've had a chance to actually be working on it for a while. So also you can imagine, say, a class like Tarek's, 200, 400 students, 8 TAs. If you don't have a rubric, then people could be responding to the work in these widely different ways. So it's also an attempt to be fair to students and consistent. And instructors will often either give you a kind of a marking guide for an assignment, or sometimes people will lead like a norming meeting where they invite people to like, hey, show me an example of what you think is a B level, what's an A level, what's a C level, and why. Get into it, talk with one another. So I'd encourage you, especially if you're doing a new genre, a new course, take advantage of those opportunities to get that kind of norming. So a grid rubric basically has 3 pieces. So there's the criteria, so say dialogue, or inciting incident, or engagement in the work of peers, whatever. Then there's sort of the levels of performance that we might be seeing across the works. I've just been helping Anosh make a rubric for 200, and he settled on transcendent, which is 100%, outstanding, which I think is a 90, capable, which is a 75, and developing, which is a 60. So we all try to sort of find our way around those things. One thing is sometimes the students in the intro classes come in with this expectation that everything's going to be 100, and if it's not, then they're like, why did I get points taken off? So when we have transcendent is 100 and outstanding is a 90, then that kind of signals like you shouldn't expect transcendent, right? Especially when the university requires this average in the 70s for these classes. It's not a question of, did I get points taken off? It's a question of, hey, you're doing a really capable job on these areas, you're doing an outstanding job in these areas, and this area is still developing. So that's just sort of a framework to be thinking about how we're talking with students. Let's see. So to use rubrics well, take the time to really familiarize yourself with the rubric. Make sure you know what the pieces are, what they're for. Sometimes criteria are a specific portion of the assignment. Sometimes it's across the entire work. So ask questions if you're not clear on something. We're trying to help students understand what they're doing well and also where they have room to grow. And something that's really crucial, especially as you're writing written feedback, is to make sure you're using terms that are coherent with the terms for that course and for that genre. So you may be moving from screen one term, fiction the next term, poetry the next term, and each course kind of has its critical craft vocabulary. And sometimes people in teaching a course might even develop a vocabulary specific to that course. So sometimes when I teach poetry, I use the terms naming, singing, saying, and imagining, because those are kind of evocative terms that sound less technical to students. So then it's really important for me that my TAs are able to talk about, this is a great use of naming, it's a great detail, right? And so if they, the instructors will share materials with you, but to make sure that you're using terms to praise or to respond to the student work that are in keeping with the vocabulary of the specific course is crucial. I guess things to watch out for, especially if something's a long rubric, make sure you're clicking all the pieces and nothing gets skipped and someone's, why is my grade so low? Oh, actually, we didn't give you a mark for this whole area. Other things, just make sure that you're consistent across, and I think part of that is the things that Tarek was referring to, so make sure that you're not exhausted when you're doing it, so that you're not like super fresh and generous as a reader at the beginning and then like burned out and rushing by the end. And as frustrating as they are, I think the strategies, sometimes just setting timers can be really useful. And even if you're exceeding them slightly, if you're supposed to send 15 minutes per assignment, 20 minutes per assignment, just set that timer and see where you're falling within that. And you might expect the first few assignments to take you longer, and then gradually you're kind of like learning the assignment, getting quicker. But if consistently it's taking you much longer than it should, then that's a good moment to just ask the instructor, hey, these are supposed to take me 20 minutes, they're taking me 45 minutes. Can we sit down and you can walk me through how to skim it a little bit better, how to look at it together, how to recognize what I'm looking for. And then, I think the quotas are really useful. If you're like, okay, I got 10 days, I got 50 assignments, if I do 5 a day, I'll be fine, and just kind of break it down and keep that running quota is really helpful. So often, along with the rubric, you're writing some kind of written comment to a student. And I would offer this just as a kind of possible template for how you might enter that. So, dear student, some kind of expression of interest or appreciation for their work. So it might be, it was so interesting to see how you interpreted this possibility, or, wow, you chose this setting that was really unexpected for this story, or just something that says, hey, I see you, right? Then a sentence or two where you point to something specific in their work, or you talk back to an observation or an insight they have. So some of the assignments might have an artist statement or a reflection or something like that. That's a great opportunity to be in conversation with the student. So you might say, hey, you mentioned that you really struggled with this thing. That's a challenge that a lot of writers grapple with. They're like, I can see that this was hard, but I really want to recognize that you spent time with it. And then research has shown that especially students experience growth when something that they're doing well is pointed out specifically. So if a student is trying to, if one of the goals for the assignment is vivid, concrete detail, which it is in almost all our classes all the time, right? To say, hey, this description, of the smell of that hallway was so precise, I felt like I was there, right? Or this description of this character really made them come alive to me. Quote their work. Just something where you show them that you actually read it, that you recognize something they're doing that's a strength, and that tells them what to build on and what to continue to do, and that's much more effective than this sucked or this wasn't strong enough, right? We do well what we see recognized and pointed out to us and are able to build on that. At the same time, if the grade is notably high, so a high 80 or a 94 on the other hand, if it's notably low, so something in the 60s or the 50s, it's important to let the student know why. I've had times before where the rubric is kind of all in the low marks and then the comment from the TA is like, great job, and that student's gonna come talk to me, right? So it's partly our responsibility to let students know why, and sometimes a rubric will have multiple options. So, the developing might be, oh, it could be this because it was unclear. It could be this because you didn't seem to have comprehension of the course concept. It could be this because you chose options that were less rigorous. So sometimes you need to use that space in the comment to say, while this was happening, you'd like to see more of this, or there's room for growth here. All right. But no matter how high or how low the mark is, give the students something to focus on for the future work. And I think even really high achieving students, they don't just want praise, they want to be given something that can be useful for them. So you could point them to a specific part of the course materials, like, hey, I'd really invite you to spend some time with the week 5 materials on sound and assonance and rhyme. I can see that would really help you develop your work in the direction you're excited about, right? So some kind of suggestion for how they can continue to grow. And then, encouraging send-off of some kind. Looking forward to seeing your next project. Thanks for sharing this work with me, whatever. So these, I'd say, would be basic steps that you can follow in almost any work, just to be able to give students something that they can use. Next slide. All right, here is my other piece of advice, and that's to keep yourself some kind of comment bank. So you may find yourself rewriting similar comments over and over again. And I know that this can feel a little bit alienating as well, but what we're trying to do is build in some efficiency so we have time to pay attention elsewhere. So, if I have a kind of thing where students are preparing for workshop, but over and over again in their sample questions that they share, they're asking these yes-no questions, and I want to push them to be asking more open-ended questions. I write a little note. Hey, I noticed that your questions lead to yes/no answers. I recommend taking some time to review these videos, see if there's any tips, It'll give you questions that get the most useful feedback. And then that gives me time to write a more specific comment about some other aspect of their work. So you might just, as you're going, I kind of sometimes just will keep a Google Doc or something, and I'll have categories, notes on this, notes on that, and there's just maybe kind of a framework or a way. If you express something kindly and clearly once, you may want to be able to draw on that again and then plug in the specific detail. So that's another thing that can help you get those things done in the time that you have and still have time for your own writing, which is really important to us. We care about that a lot. So just a reminder, pretty much anyone you ask in the world who has done a writing class can point to someone who has either been really helpful for them, whose words made them convinced that they could be a writer or made them take themselves seriously as a writer, and often also someone who demoralized them in some way or made them think they should never write again. So just a reminder that there's a lot of power in that. All writing, even if it's not very personal writing, has vulnerability to it because students are wondering, can I write in this genre? Can I be a university writer? Can I be part of this discourse community? What happens when I try to do this thing? And even if it's the 48th student for you, your words still carry a lot of impact for them. And so there's a weight and a seriousness to that. So we need to be clear, constructive, and above all supportive to our students. And thank you so much.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah.
Just about the slides, will we get a copy of them?
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Esther.
Could you just speak a little bit more of the flipped classes that are
Yeah.
next to the structure there?
Sure. So those classes are, I think, 301, 303, 305, 306, and 309. And they're set up so that there's an instructor, a faculty member attached to them, who typically makes online materials, so like little micro videos or Canvas pages, that kind of thing, assigned readings. And then there are TAs who are attached to that class. Each one has a section, so a group of 20 to 30 students. And different instructors have different degrees of how they kind of work out how much leeway or flexibility the TA has. So some people might give a kind of, here's an outline for the class, and here are the activities I want you to do. Other people might be like, here's some ideas, are there things you want to try? Or the assignments maybe would be the same across the students, but say different TAs. I know when you were with Austin, like you and Carlos maybe both had different like workshop approaches, or you and Jazid, and so there can be some space, especially if the TA is interested, but hey, I really want to try this workshop approach, or I want to work with students in this way. There can be more chance to kind of try out those classroom facilitation skills and maybe have some say in how the course is run. Yeah. So more responsibility, also more freedom. Yeah.
Anyone else have more questions? All right, thank you so much. Okay, so the next part is what I think has already been touched on by Tara, which is on handling AI coursework. So over the past 2 years, we've seen a surge in AI-generated content, and writing has not been an exception. We see that across all industries, whether it's from business to education to science and everything. So of course, we see that in the creative writing department. And you would think that you might not see that because creative writing is a very voluntary program in the sense that to come here, you have to have some level of desire to write. But for whatever reason, some students feel that they need to use AI to help them with the assignments. Maybe they feel stressed, maybe they feel anxious, or they feel like maybe they're not equipped to write about whichever topic the assignment is calling for. But we do see that students do use AI. And in the past, I think it was more easy to spot out which type of content is AI-generated content, just because it had a specific way of talking or a specific type of voice. But these days, it's becoming more and more challenging to spot out which type of content is AI-generated. So, but we still have some type of some key indicators that something might be AI. That is, if it seems too consistent or too repetitive or too perfect, and maybe this is a 200 level student, they don't have kind of experience in this genre that would allow them to write this sort of level. Or it could also be very vague and it wouldn't actually address the assignment question. Let's say you say write about setting. You could write about setting in a way that isn't precise to the assignment question itself. And for example, if the student had been writing a certain way with 1, with 2, with 3, and suddenly with 5, 6, and 7, they just become from say 50 to like 120. So you know that there's something at play there. And yeah, same thing, repeating certain phrases that sound robotic, made up data or resources or things like that. But basically, over-reliance on AI can compromise academic integrity. It can lead to marks that don't really reflect what their capacity, their capabilities are. It can also impede them from getting the kind of help they need to actually become better writers, which is, a it doesn't flow in line with the program. And yeah, so I have a question for you guys. So which of this is true? 1, AI generated content is always in sports. 2, UBC mandates the use of AI detection tools. 3, AI can sometimes create inaccurate or fictional information.
C.
Yes, that's correct. C is the correct answer. So what to do if you suspect AI use? So you can flag the assignment for the instructor if something doesn't seem right. You'll be marking the student's assignment. How come just this randomly their voice is so different than how it was before? But it's important to not address the student directly because you can't just assume that the student is using AI even if the voice is dramatically different. So what you need to do then is just tell the instructor that I feel this student is using AI, this is why I think the student is using AI, and that's it. So you don't have to do anything more. And you can also note down what made you feel suspicious about the content that the student has submitted, or you could compare the work with earlier submissions if possible. But it's also important to note that you don't have to have this kind of anxiety that, oh, what if the student is using AI, what if the student is using AI? And you don't have to also go into the marking process with the thought that these students are using AI. As Sarah said, it's better to go at it with an open mind and kind of give students that benefit of the doubt. That way it's less stressful for you because you already have a lot of work to do by marking. So giving yourself that extra amount of pressure might be, might not be productive for you or for the class at the end of the day. And really, the student is creating a problem for themselves because at the end of the day, you go out into the world to become a writer, and if your voice is the voice of ChatGPT, then you're not really going to do what you came to do, which is to improve your voice as a writer. But yeah, as TAs also, it can be tempting to use AI to mark students' work just because, for example, if the deadline to submit is tomorrow and it's today, and you're like, oh, I can't do 30 assignments, I can't do 50 assignments, let me put the students' work into AI, the marking code with the partial review, this and do that. So when you feel like you're not able to meet up with the deadline, the best thing to do is actually reach out to your instructor and say, for whatever reason, you're not able to mark the assignment, and then they'll find a way around it. But you can't put students' work into AI because it violates their intellectual property, it breaks their trust. So they have a lot of trust. The students see TAs as these people with so much experience and so much power. They think they're in a master's program, which is true, and so many of us are people that have been writing for a long time, so they trust you with their work. So putting their work into AI really breaks that trust that they have in you and in Sola and in school. And it also undermines their trust in the program. So it might seem like, oh, I just want to save myself this amount of time, but it's actually creating something that students will carry forever. So as Bronwyn said, sometimes what you say or what you do to a student can influence how they move forward with themselves or their work in the future. So if they think, oh, this TA put my work into AI, they can just feel that there's no point doing any other creative writing course. Why should I bother when the student is just going to use, or the TA just going to use AI to mark my work? So, do you have any questions about AI, student work? Okay, great. So, now we're going to talk to, or the TA mentors are going to talk to us, so I'll invite you guys to discuss.
Actually, I do have one question. It's
Okay.
to me. So last semester, I had a student who was, I think, English was their second language, and I did flag AI, possible AI use in their work, but it wasn't enough that the professor felt that we needed to sort of mark them that word or needed talking about. In moments where it's clear that the student is maybe leaning on AI for fear of their English not being good enough, is that something that we should just directly flag to the instructor, or is that something we should bring up with the student?
No, I think you need to flag out with the instructor and they will decide how to handle it.
There's also programs for the students, in terms of English program at the school and other English help and tutoring.
There's a lot of students.
Yeah, it's better when in doubt, just reach out to the instructor because you know what to do.
I had a student submit an AI photo of a seal. One of the assignments is that they have to like go outside and take pictures of things, and it was very clearly an AI generated photo of a seal at the beach. No, it was AI generated. It was so strange. And so I messaged like Sharita at the time, and then she was like, I'll handle it. And it became kind of like, we use the seal emoji now whenever we have like suspicions. Oh, hold on. I don't.
Alright, so before we go into this question, we have to have one TA that will be here in the beginning, and I would really like for her to do the icebreaker. So the icebreaker is your name, what course you're TAing, then 2 truths about yourself, and then 1 wish that you have.
I wish I could know. Hi, my name is Ashia. I'm TAing Taylor's 200 class. And let's see. So I've zip-lined over a rainforest and traveled to 25 countries, lived in 6. And then I played in China.
So 1 wish you have for the year.
To be better.
Okay, so your TA mentors are going to talk to you more about day-to-day operations or day-to-day life of the TA. And the first is, if it's easier for you, maybe you can sit there so you can see.
Yeah, so I think Ron and Tarek both talked about this a bit, but I definitely, like, when it comes to course emails, like, try to make sure that you're checking them, like, I mean, I personally check them basically every day because then I don't get stressed out that, like, I'm missing something, and that way, but yeah, the students, like, a lot of the time they are really anxious, or they're, like, want to know something really quickly, and a lot of the time it's, like, a pretty quick question, so, yeah, they're very anxious.
They're very anxious.
So I would say just like, most of their questions are gonna be pretty easy for you to respond to, and if they're not, just like forward it to your professor if it's something you don't feel like you could address. But yeah, it just makes it less intimidating for you if you stay on top of them, and just try and get to like, make sure that you're not like accidentally marking something as read when you haven't like actually responded to it yet. Coordinate with our TAs, there's definitely like, sometimes we'll do like little grading parties and stuff like that too, so like, you know, you can always just like meet up with other TAs to like grade together, and it kind of makes it the time pass easier. And I definitely like recommend trying to have a look at like where everybody's like grades are, because like it makes it a lot easier to not be like accidentally kind of grading on more curve than other people. Like personally, I had like a really strict undergrad, so I've had a really hard time getting onto like the right kind of grading average. It took me a while, so talk to other TAs about that. It helps a lot. Yeah, keep in touch with your TA, with your like TA coordinator and or professors about basically like you keep in touch with us if you have questions. And yeah, I would also say like what Robin said about keeping like a bank of comments makes it so much faster, and just try and like do like literally 5 or 6 different assignments a day, like, and then you'll be on top of things. It's not too scary.
And can I add on to that? Make sure you know what your duties are with each professor, because for example, Soph mentioned checking the email. For people who are doing 201 with Sharita actually keeps the checking of the email and also assigns that to the TAs who are not in person. It's like the way that she balances like between TAs who are in person versus TAs who are online, like the OptRes program TAs. So make sure you know, because last year I was so stressed because I didn't know the password for the class email, and I kept like freaking out, and then at the end of the term I found out I wasn't even supposed to be checking that. So make sure you, because we have overall like guidelines, but each professor does things a little bit different. Everyone wants to be so quirky, and so make sure you know what your specific professor wants. Like we're giving you the guidelines, but each professor has a different expectation.
Well, that's yeah, I'll just try to give like maybe some examples from my experience as a TA in 206 and then also in the flipped class. So reacting to students' needs, sometimes they come asking for maybe more time on assignments, or like I've had some students ask if they can skip class or something. So just refer them to the professor, because it's not your duty. So refer them to the professor, and then the professor will handle that. So because sometimes when you try to get involved, it could get maybe a little bit messy. So and also remember, you're also a student. And then if same for the reacting to students' needs, the professor could maybe refer them to get like a concession from, I think it's Center for Accessibility. So but your job is just to refer them to the professor. And then for proactive communication, sometimes it's kind of like you notice a pattern. Maybe a student is not turning in an assignment, or a student hasn't been to class in a while. I would say this is easier for, like, if you're going to do like a flipped class. I noticed, for me anyway, I noticed that there were students who were not coming to class, or maybe because the professor was not there or something. So, or maybe they were not turning in assignments. So again, it's not your duty. Just refer them to the professor and let the professor know, and then they will reach out to the student and handle everything concerning it. And then use your influence wisely. I think just trying to maintain like a positive tone, like I think Bronwyn mentioned, like when we're giving feedback. So it's kind of like trying to maintain a positive tone with that. And also with students, like in class, just understanding that, just like what Ume was saying, they see us as, maybe demigods. I don't know, you see it like when you go in there, but I think it goes a long way, like when you're approachable. And sometimes they are flip. Like I had a student go up for me once, like it doesn't happen all the time. But that was when I was staying for a flipped class. So luckily the professor was there, because he was going around and everything, and then she had a problem. I don't know, she had an issue, and then she just went up to me and then also the professor. So in that, like if stuff like that happens, hopefully it doesn't happen. It's kind of like trying to remind yourself that, it's like take deep breaths or something, and trying to still maintain that positive, because you can't go off on the student anyway, but the professor will still handle that at the end of the day. So
No, you can call the TA mentors, you can rant to us.
Yeah,
we love us.
Yeah, you can do that, and they will just come rushing and help. So, yeah, but if that happens, also it's like remembering, like it's hard, but it's like remembering, trying to like stay above it, trying to be like the bigger person in that situation, and and also like fostering a positive learning environment. Still in that class, same students, because we were doing like workshops, and she was trying to be so negative on someone's work, trying to say that it wasn't working and all that. But I remember I reached out to Bronwyn, and she reminded me that we have that influence to also protect the other students as well. Yeah. So.
I'll also say that sometimes when the students come at you with these things that you need to refer them to, you need to in turn refer them to the professor, or it can be a bit tricky in that situation, especially if maybe you go to class and they meet you in person. So what you can do is that if they say they need more time for assignment or something is happening, you can just empathize with them in that moment and just let them know that you reach out to the instructor, and then the instructor will reach out, will contact them with anything. But it can be, like I said, it can be a bit tricky, especially when you have that face-to-face contact with them, because some of them can be very anxious and they can come at you with a lot of emotions. So it's just important to remember that it's, as much as, it's not your responsibility to handle that, but reacting to them in that moment with some level of empathy and just letting them know that you are doing this, just letting them know clearly that instructor will be want to handle this, but in that moment you are empathizing with them.
Okay, so who here has experienced burnout? Raise a hand. Okay, so it's really difficult to, you know, like this is ultimately a job and we're all here and we're being hired by UBC. The great thing is that we're in a creative writing department and writers are like mostly really interested in the human experience. And so every professor that we have in the department and like the people who are here, like the TA mentors, like we all understand that you're all your own universe with your own issues, just like all the students are also. Like it's not just because you're TAing that you lose your capacity for, you know, having a bunch of problems happen at once and getting depressed and getting overwhelmed with the amount of work that you have. And so obviously like there is the recognizing the early signs of burnout is really important. So if you're suddenly, you know, everything seems fine, but then you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling exhausted, you're not being able to catch up on work, you're constantly feeling like you're drowning, or you're struggling to keep up with all your tasks, or just thinking about your tasks makes you want to cry, or you know, like you're just suddenly losing interest or motivation in writing your thesis, even though you have to. Recognize that, that's first step. And then reach out to someone. Like if you recognize that, you know, reach out to a friend or a trusted person, or you can reach out to us. And I do mean this, like you can reach out to me. I'm on campus like 3 days a week. I'd be happy to have coffee with you. I'm neurodivergent, I live with disabilities. I have gone through burnout hundreds of times. I had to move in with my parents when I was 25 because I was so burned out. So I'm happy to sit down and have a coffee with you if it's at that early stage where like, you know, we don't need any external intervention yet. But it's really important that you set boundaries with yourself, with the people around you. When I was dealing with really bad burnout, a therapist said to me that we're all juggling a lot of objects, and the key to not having burnout is knowing which objects are made of glass and which ones are made of plastic. So which ones you can just drop if you have to. And this will be very individual from person to person. Like maybe you are in a great financial situation and you can drop TAing in the future term if that's causing you too much overwhelm. Or maybe you're not. Maybe, you know, you have kids and that takes precedent and those are the objects made of glass. So you need to just have a lot of discernment and set boundaries with yourself. Establish specific times for TA duties and for your own work. Avoid taking on like more than you can handle. So like if you're already feeling overwhelmed being a TA and doing your MFA, maybe like don't apply to another work learning position, you know, because you could get it. And then you're gonna be even more overwhelmed. Or, you know, like we just have to really have discernment about how much we say yes to. I'm a yes person, I love saying yes to things, but then in the end I just end up really overwhelmed. But I am saying yes that I will have coffee with you. Like I do mean it, I'm not overwhelmed right now. And schedule regular breaks and personal time. So like, I don't know what personally enriches you, or like, you know, in an ideal world, if you had nothing to do, what would you be doing? Make sure you do that at least once a week. Unless it's like, I don't know, winning the lottery. I can't guarantee that you're gonna do that. But I, for example, when I was looking for an apartment, my #1 requirement was that I have a bathtub. Because for me, there's nothing I like more in the entire world than going into a hot, gross bath with my own body, like water. And so every night when I come home from UBC and I'm overwhelmed, I make sure I'm in the tub for at least 15 minutes. It just makes me feel better. So whatever it is that you need that will give you that extra energy, the world is overwhelming, we're going through a lot. There's a lot of pain and difficulty. There's a lot of love and solidarity too. You need to find your breaks, your personal time. Find what makes you feel happy. And I have ADHD, so stay organized. Use a calendar or a planner. Sometimes that doesn't work. Speak to your professor. If you have accessibility needs, the Center for Accessibility has an amazing program that will help you schedule your life, basically. There's trainings that you can do, like added trainings, that will help you learn how to manage your work-life balance. UBC is a huge school, which is amazing because it has so much to offer you. If you're really, really, really feeling overwhelmed, talk to your like fellow TAs. I had an experience last year where like grading was due at like 1, and at 10 a.m. I got some like really heavy personal news, and I started freaking out because I was like, there's no way am I going to be able to handle both of these things. So I reached out to the professor I was TAing for, and at first I was really embarrassed. How dare I have a personal life and have like a family emergency? But then I remembered like, oh, I'm a human being, and these are human beings. And also I'm in a union, so whatever. But basically make sure that you're sharing like, not just like your responsibilities with other people, but make sure you're sharing like the fact that you're a human being with other people. And it's okay that sometimes you won't be able to handle everything. Sometimes your fellow TAs can take over for you and like grade one more assignment if you're missing that and you're almost at deadline. Make sure you're not overwhelming them too, because they're also, you know, we're all so tired. We're all so tired. But yeah, basically, yeah, those are my pieces of advice. There is counseling on campus. I will be very happy. It's very confusing, especially if you've just moved to Vancouver, or if you just moved to Canada. I moved here from Brazil. It was very hard to get like the explicit directions on how to get help. But if you are experiencing burnout, I experienced burnout last term. I had to go to the hospital, I got on medication, and then I got better. And it was like really great to know how to do that. So if you need help, I can also sit down with you and guide you towards the right direction. And that's it. Don't burn out. Yeah, so seek support. There's, like you saw, lots of people raise their hand. If you all find helpful as well, we can talk as TA mentors. We can have maybe like a support group where we meet like once a month and we can talk about just like the general overwhelm things. And most of all, have a lot of compassion for yourself. Like, you're doing a really hard thing. This program is very akin to a PhD in the amount of demand that it asks of you. I know my partner is getting a PhD and I have way more homework. Okay, well his is harder, but mine is a lot more work. And basically, just like feel out how much time you need. Everyone takes their own time for every task, and try to learn how much time you need. Sometimes we're coming from a background where we're writing our own assignments and we're doing our own things, and we think like, oh, it'll be easy, I just have to grade this thing, and then you sit down and you realize like, oh, I did not give myself enough time. One thing that really helped me when I was starting is time yourself, like actually time yourself, doing like 1 or 2 assignments to see how much time you take on average. And that goes through your classes too. Like if you have to do 1,500 words a week for a certain class, time yourself, see how much time, so that you can accommodate that into your skills. And yeah, understand that it's okay not to be perfect. We have a perfectionist that self-admitted. One great thing about TAing is that you're going to see that like nobody is perfect. Like the students have great passion and great quality work, but there's always something to be improved, and that's the same thing with us as TAs. And celebrate all your small wins and progresses, and if you need to celebrate with someone, you can message us, you can email us. We'll be like, yay, good job! And yeah, questions?
You guys did a great job.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have some questions for you.
Quiz time.
This is very important.
How the
Like, way
tables
to your
turn.
brain. Okay, so while reviewing an essay, you suspect that the work may have been generated by AI due to unusual framing and lack of a coherent argument. However, you're not entirely certain and there's no clear evidence. So what you need to do here is choose the best course of action to ensure that there is academic integrity without unfairly accusing the students. Should you A, confront the student directly and accuse them of using AI without concrete evidence?
Yeah.
B, mark the essay as incomplete and request a meeting with the students to discuss your concerns? Or C, provide feedback on the areas where the essay lacks coherence and suggest revisions without mentioning your suspicion, and then reach out to the instructor.
C.
Yes, you guys are all doing so great. Oh yeah, there's also D. So you're juggling multiple responsibilities as a TA, including grading, holding office hours, and assisting in lectures. You're beginning to feel overwhelmed and stressed, and it's affecting your ability to perform well in your duties. So what is the best strategy to manage your workload and prevent burnout? A, speak to your supervising professor about adjusting your workload or deadlines. B, push through the stress, knowing it's temporary and will pass after the term. C, delegate some of your responsibilities to students. Or D, prioritize self-care by setting strict boundaries on your working hours.
A.
Yes, A, and also D as well, because if you set boundaries around your working hours and you hold yourself accountable, then you will prevent burnout before it happens. So, a student has missed several assignments, the course is nearing its end, and you're concerned about their ability to pass. So what is the best approach to address the student's lack of communication and also ensure that you've done your part as a TA? A, inform the student that they will fail the course if they don't submit the remaining assignments immediately. B, continue sending reminder emails and wait for the student to respond. C, escalate the issue to your course instructor, detailing your concerns about the student. Or D, assume the student has dropped out of the course and stop writing results.
C.
Yes, we get somebody. Okay, this is the last one. So a student submits an assignment 2 days late, say citing personal issues. The course policy deducts 10% per day for late submission, but the student requests leniency due to their situation. So how would you submit? How would you handle this in a way that balances empathy with fairness to the other student that submitted on time? So should you A, apply the course policy and deduct 20% of the student's grade? B, allow the students to submit without any penalty due to their personal issues. C, empathize with the student's situation but escalate the issue to the course instructor to decide on any exceptions or accommodations. Or D, ask the students to provide documentation for their personal issues. C, yes, that's correct. We never ask students for doctor's reports. Even as a master's student, your professor can't ask for a doctor's report. Seriously. Thank you. Please sign the attendance. Also, we should all take pictures.